right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the DadWise podcast. I'm Isaac Colavecchio, your host. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you a conversation I had with Jerrad Lopes, the leader of the DadTired community. Awesome conversation. Talked to him about faith and family and how Jesus is his foundation for loving his wife, loving his children, and being a present and engaged father. I think you guys are going to really like the conversation. He also gives me some insight into what to expect with my fourth child coming soon. And if you haven't listened to the What to Expect series, A Dad's Guide to Pregnancy, you can find that on the podcast or on YouTube as well. If you want to connect with me, leave a comment or tell me what you think about the podcast, you can shoot me a message on Instagram. We also have a Facebook group you can join. And also, don't forget, there is the 12 Rules for Dad Life book that you can pick up on Amazon. So links to all that below, but without further ado, let's get into the conversation. All right, Jerrad, we're here. Glad to have you on the podcast. It's Lopes, right? Is that how you say your last name?
Yeah.
I was saying Lopez for a long time, but then
I know. Well, you and everybody else, man. It's like every single day I'm having to make some kind of reference to my last name.
Lopes. And you mentioned in your book you love Mexican food, so it was even added.
It gets a little more tricky. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for hopping on. Will you just give quick context for people who haven't heard of you, where you're at, what you do, how many kids you have, a little background on yourself?
Yeah, man. Trying my best to figure out what it means to follow Jesus and be a disciple of his. That's first and foremost my identity, and I'm learning the more I root myself in that, the better husband and father I am. So trying that. I'm married, my wife, 13 years. We got 4 kids, 12 down to 2.
Nice.
Yeah, and my 2-year-old she's on the other side of this wall, and I can hear her screaming and literally kicking her legs against her crib, protesting her nap now. So
I can't hear it, so you're good.
Yeah, I'm always like, this is exactly why I got that condenser mic to just get all that background noise out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I run a ministry called DadTired, which is just a bunch of guys who I think it's a humble group of men who are don't take themselves too seriously, but take Jesus seriously and are trying to figure out what it means to love him and help their families love him.
I love that. How long have you been doing the DadTired stuff?
8 year now. This is year 8. Yeah.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that long.
Yeah.
Did you publish your first book when you started the DadTired book, or was that a little bit later into it?
Publishing's it's an interesting world I didn't know anything about, but when you have people listening or watching anything you're doing, people want to get in front of those people as well. And so as DadTired started to grow, I wasn't trying to start a ministry. We can get into that later if it's helpful, but I had no desire to start a ministry. It was not what I wanted to do. I was trying to I was in rebellious mode and sin, and my marriage was falling apart. Yeah. And DadTired came out of that, but as it grew,
it's a good time to start. Yeah,
exactly.
Group for men.
It was totally on accident.
Yeah.
But as it was growing, then publishers were reaching out and saying, you want to write a book, which I didn't know anything about, but I learned that world quickly. So the book came after starting the ministry.
Okay. How did you get started on DadTired? It was an accident, came out of kind of a mess, but what was the impetus? Yeah,
I was in the church world for over 12, 13 years and had helped plant a church in your neck of the woods, Pacific Northwest. Okay. And planted with a guy that I thought was a good friend. Ended out turning out he was much different working together than who I thought he was. It was a mess. He actually got disqualified from ministry later, but before all that happened, it just kind of blew up, and I got really hurt by the church and him specifically, like church leaders. But I was like, I'm never going to do this church thing again. I didn't want to be part of it anymore. I was really burned out. And in that season of life, I think I was like, in hindsight, no doctor diagnosed me as like being depressed, but in hindsight, looking back, I'm like, I was for sure depressed.
Right.
And I didn't know how to articulate this, and like my immaturity and I was in my mid 20s, I guess, at the time. And I didn't know how to process well. I wasn't like emotionally mature. I don't know if I am now, but I definitely wasn't then. Yeah. And I think what I really wanted, like, I didn't know how to articulate this, but I really wanted was just my wife to like hug me and be like, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this, Yeah. But my wife, that's not her personality. Her personality is like just facts and like, especially when hard things hit, she gets in like factual mode. And so she wasn't like warm. She was like, let's figure out the details, which is a gift, but that's not what I wanted at that time. And that in hindsight was like pulling us apart, like our oneness, our emotional connection.
Right.
And so I just started to like emotionally remove myself from her. I became a really distant father, for sure, a distant husband. And I thought we were going to get divorced, like legitimately. I remember the day I was sitting in the car and I typed into Google divorce lawyers near me, which if you've been married longer than like 3 years, everyone's had weird thoughts, like 6 months probably, like everybody's had weird thoughts in marriage.
Right.
Marriage is really, really hard.
Yeah.
But actually typing those words was like, this is real. And I think we're actually going to get divorced. I was playing out custody stuff in my head. It was so bad. Anyway, so we were in the middle of this fight, and Layla, she said something to me that I knew was going to like start a fight, and I'm like, all right, let's fight, and my immaturity and like my depression, my just sin, like all of it, I was like, I'm just going to hurt her. I'm not going to try to win this fight. I'm not going to try to outsmart her. She's smarter than me. I'm just going to say things to hurt her. Yeah. And so she said something to me, and I just said something back to her to hurt her. And it worked because she started to cry, and I was like, oh, so this is how bad of a spot I was in. I was like, I'm winning. Yeah. Like, I'm winning this fight. Yeah. And she said to me, she's like, Jerrad, I have been waking up in the morning. She had been setting her alarm for 3 a.m. every morning. Yeah. And she had been sneaking out of our room, going into the living room, and she had been praying. She told me this. She said, I've been praying that God would capture your heart again. Yeah. And I was like, that moment, what are you gonna do? You
definitely win.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? Slam a door? I'm not that big of a jerk. I don't think.
Yeah.
So anyway, God, the Bible says in Romans, it's God's kindness that leads us to repentance, and it was the kindness of God through my wife that like broke my heart that day, and turned me around, and so I started to talk about it, and I wrote this blog, which I wasn't a blogger. It was a very millennial thing of me to do, like process my emotions online,
Yeah, for sure.
I don't recommend doing that, but I did it in my immaturity. And all these guys it went viral because all these mommy blogs picked it up. They like would title it all these clickbaity things like, wife sneaks out on her husband at 2 a.m. every night. It's like all these really clickbaity titles. But
to
it just
pray.
They never said to pray until you read the article. Yeah. But it just went viral, and this was back when viral things like changed your life, Yeah. And so these guys reached out and they were like, dude, I feel the same way. I'm not the husband, I'm not the dad that I thought I would be, but I don't want to give up. And that's how DadTired started. I just was talking to these guys, and I always say God tricked me back into ministry. I had no desire to like get back in. I wasn't trying to start anything, but that was a long-winded answer, but that's how it started.
When did it switch to like a full-time job for you? What did you do in that interim between Pastor World and DadTired World?
I had other churches that had offered me jobs, and I just was so like, I wasn't in a good spot to like go back and work at a church. I just turned them down. I genuinely had no desire to go work in a church. And so, dude, I did everything. Like I was so stubborn to like, I was just really I sold gutters at Costco. I drove for Uber. I started a photography business, which I didn't even know how to turn on a camera. Legit. Nice. Got my first client and was trying to figure out how to get out of the menu setting. But I was just awesome. I'm going to go start businesses and stuff, but I didn't. I started a video business. Like a digital marketing video business. That's really what sustained us for many years as DadTired was growing. And my wife was a nurse. She is a nurse, so her income helped too. But I was just doing all kinds of odd jobs.
Yeah. Are you guys, so I worked at a church for, 7 years. My dad was the pastor, which is a whole nother set of circumstances. But we ended up leaving and quitting, and it's messy. So how have you navigated? I'm assuming you're involved in a church now. How have you navigated and got past some of that past hurt? Because I know a lot of people are in the same place, like used to go to church people, How did you process that, and how long did it take before you could go into a church building without feeling all the feelings?
Totally.
Yeah.
I know that feeling well. It was like, that was 8 years ago that all happened, and legit found a church like 6 months ago.
Okay.
We were part of a home church for a little while after that. That was really good and like needed. It was super small. There was like 10 families in it, and those guys were like the guys in there specifically really helped me process that hurt and stuff. But it wasn't like, it didn't feel like I was like, it was more like a community. You know, we were a small community. And then, dude, when we moved from the West Coast over here to the East Coast and tried to find churches for like a year, and I was so skeptical and like cynical, had deep cynicism, like just didn't trust pastors or leaders, and like it really irks me when and this is just me being like sinful, you know, I got to get over this stuff, but like if I showed up to a church and I just felt like the pastor was just so much about trying to be cool and like I'm like, dude, don't like there's one cool guy here and it's Jesus. It's not anybody else, you know? So like,
you don't need leather pants.
Exactly. So it just really, I was just really, really cynical. And Layla, this was like, we kept going to church because I want to be involved in local church. I know I need that community and all that, but never found a church that I really liked. And then Layla was like, well, let's go to this one church because some of our homeschooling families were going there. Yeah. And I told her no for so long. And then we went there. And the pastor dude, he's younger than me. He's like 3-4 years younger than me. He was teaching, and it just was like hitting me hard. And I could tell the dude didn't have a prideful bone in his body. He just loved Jesus. And I'm like, should we go in the car? And she's like, what do you think? And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It was all right. You know. And then we went back the next week. Next week. He taught again, dude. I was like bawling in my which I've you know, I'm like, I teach, you know, like, so you know all the inner workings of a church.
I've heard like, a million sermons.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
know how this goes.
I know where this goes. 2 points. Here we go. Introduction. You know, all this stuff. But dude, I'm like crying, like legit crying in the chair. Yeah. And anyway, he's a good friend of mine now. He's actually teaching at a DadTired thing.
Oh, nice.
But I told him, like, dude, I did not want to like you. I did not want to like the church. But that we go there now. We're plugged in. I teach there from time to time. There you go. He's involved with DadTired. And
nice. Anyway, yeah. What kind of church is it? Is it like a...
It's a non-denominational church.
Okay.
Yeah, but it actually has charismatic roots, which I grew up in a charismatic church that actually I got hurt. Like it was just like it felt really showy and dramatic, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to deal with this. And so that's the roots of this church. But this guy, what I love about him is he's like, God can do crazy things that feel weird. You know, like he can heal people. He can heal people of addictions and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's true. I believe in that. But he's like, and at the same time, what can happen at more charismatic churches is you just kind of throw out theology. It's just like, let's get some goosebumps today, you know?
Let's go crazy.
Yeah, let's go crazy. And he's like, I've never seen anyone balance it better. Dude teaches verse by verse, so theologically sound, and at the same time is like, dude, also, this is the God of the universe we're talking about. Right. Like, why would we not expect him to do crazy things? Yeah. And so it's great. I love it.
I love that. Yeah, in our kind of church wanderings, we've kind of I've like checked out some Anglican churches, some like Reformed churches, and because our church was non-denominational, kind of like a Bill Hybels vibe, like 90s, started in the 90s, and so I was like, maybe something different would be fun. And so we've kind of tried out all the sorts of different flavors, but I think we've landed somewhere now.
Oh, good, dude.
Yeah,
that's great. So. Yeah, I always say, dude, like, my big thing is what I've learned in my few years of being in the church now is I just don't care about cool. You know, like, in fact, the more cool you're trying to be, the more I'm like, I don't want to be part of it. So like, dude, there are Baptist churches, there are non-denominational churches, there are Anglican churches. There's a lot of churches of all varieties that just with people who genuinely love Jesus and are faithful. You know, it's like the men and women who are leading, they're not trying to be cool or flashy. They just want to be faithful disciples. And I'm like, I just want to be part of a church like that.
Right. Yeah. And we spent so long, like when we were in the church, thinking about it, trying to hack it, trying to make it better and do all this stuff. And it's really nice just to go and be like, these are people. They're all messed up. And we're going to just do what we can here and not expect too much. Like, still take responsibility for our own lives, not expect the church to fix everything, but to plug in and kind of be involved in that way. So yeah, it's definitely a journey. It's been a journey for us to like try to plug into a larger body institution and be okay with that. But,
it's messy, man.
Yeah. I was going to ask, what do you think is some of the biggest things that dads struggle with? I know you talk with dads all the time. You have your groups and conferences and everything. What comes up as kind of the main thing that you see dads kind of wrestling with, common pitfalls in the dad world?
Yeah, I think, dude, I bet you most guys who are listening could probably answer that with like their 5 things that they think most guys are dealing with. Like we all just know from ourselves and our friends, like here are the 5 things that trip us up constantly as men. But I always say it, so you can name that, like you could list the 5 things or any 6 things, 10 things, whatever they are. So for anyone visually watching, I have my hand up and I have my all five fingers up. But you could just say like, okay, I deal with lust, I deal with addiction, I deal with drinking too much, I deal with anger, whatever the thing is. I love money more than I love anything else. Really, it's become a god for me. I'm chasing the dollar. So those are all symptoms, really. And so again, I'm holding my hand up and now pointing to the bottom of my arm, which would really be the root of the tree.
Right.
And all of it comes back to that same root, which is, am I actually satisfied in Christ alone? Like, do I know my identity and who I am? Do I know my identity as a son of God? And when I don't, everything else feels really appealing. I'll just chase whatever I can to like try to satisfy my soul. And all of us are chasing something. Every dude is chasing something that he's hoping will satisfy his soul. But all of it comes back to identity. I think it's like all back to the Garden of Eden stuff. Like when Satan whispered into her ear, won't this satisfy you? That's essentially, you're missing out, was essentially, it wasn't fruit. She was surrounded by fruit, but it was, you're missing out on something. And all of us have that kind of question in us. Am I missing out? Yeah, I know there's God, but am I missing out on something else?
Yeah.
And so when we get satisfied in Jesus, like to actually rest in sonship, like there's nothing I can accomplish today, nothing I can do that would make my heart, my soul feel more satisfied than just knowing I'm deeply loved by the God of the universe. And that's like a daily struggle. Legit daily struggle.
Right.
So I think that's what guys deal with the most. And when we start to get that, we just naturally become better husbands and fathers and men.
Yeah. I can't remember. I think it was Becoming a King. I don't know. Have you read that one?
Yeah. Morgan Snyder. He's been on our show. Yeah.
Yeah. He has a whole chapter on sonship. And I think that's probably the best chapter in the book. But just the idea that you can't be a father unless you are fathered, and how a lot of us dads are just like building the plane as we fly it, right? Like we're either doing what we saw done or doing the opposite of what we saw done, but without like a real model for fatherhood. And so
Well, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was at Morgan. He was like kind of, from what I understand, mentored or discipled by John Eldredge. They work really closely together. And John Eldredge wrote a book. He was on our podcast. And so I'd already read some of his books, but I was reading some more of his stuff just to get familiar with him before he came on our show. But he wrote a book called Fathered by God. And I remember I was reading that book while I was mowing the lawn. And dude, I just like literally stopped and just started bawling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, my neighbor's probably like, what the heck is going on over there?
My grass is not green enough.
Allergies are kicking in, man. Yeah, it was intense. But that's a really good book too. If you have like any kind of fatherhood thing, Fathered by God is it's intense.
Yeah. I just read like The Healing of the Masculine Soul, which is kind of in that vein. Might have been pre Eldredge. So I have the bookends. I need to get the meat in the middle. Yeah. What are some of like the ideas of fatherhood? So like as you look at God as father, how do those concepts or the principles or the theology of that, how does that trickle down into our fathering? Like how can we model our fatherhood off of God's fatherhood?
Well, it's everything, bro. It's literally everything. You asked how long I've been doing this. I was going back to some of the very first interviews that we've ever done on our show, and I had a guy on named Jeff Vanderstelt. He's actually from your area, Seattle, is where he was from originally. Okay, but he has a whole ministry called Soma, and he kind of coined the term gospel fluency. Yeah. And it's really, really fast. I was just listening to this last night before I went to bed. But he basically, the gospel fluency idea is that you view the world through the gospel. And so like you become fluent in gospel. Right. Thought and language. Like in the same way that as you're learning another language, like if you're trying to learn Spanish, you're constantly like, okay, here's the English version, here's the Spanish. Yeah. And that's not really fluency, you're just learning. And that's how most people are with the gospel. It's like, I don't really understand it. Like I know my way and your way, but eventually you get to the point of gospel fluency where your whole life is viewed through the gospel. You're not even thinking anymore. It's subconscious. Yeah. You're viewing everything. So that when you ask like, for us, as how does God the Father relate to how we father? It's everything. It's why am I more patient with my kids? Because God is more patient with me. Right. When I'm fluent in that gospel, for me, I would just say the gospel is the good news that God should have bailed on us and he didn't. You can define the gospel in a million ways. Sure. And that one definition isn't the way, right? But it's helpful for me to recognize, like, you sum it all down, God should have bailed on humanity and he didn't. Instead, he pursued us and turned us from enemies into sons and daughters. Yeah. So you meditate on that gospel daily. It's like, well, it changes. I'm patient with my kids because God is patient with me. How many times has God bailed on, or how many times have you turned your back on God and he should have bailed? Yeah. If you wake up, you wake up, you wake
he hasn't
up
bailed any times. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You wake up in the morning and you abide in the Lord. You spend time in prayer and in God's word and reflecting on the gospel. Man, God, you have been so patient with me. And then your kids mess up. It's hard not to be patient and long-suffering with them when you've been meditating on how patient and long-suffering God's been towards you. Yeah. Yesterday I caught my daughter. I have 3 daughters, so I won't name which one in case she ever listens to this. I caught one of my 3 daughters in a lie. Pretty bold-faced lie. She had been doing something behind my back. And I remember thinking this happened last night. I remember thinking, I'm really angry at what she did, and I feel like exploding. Yeah. But for whatever reason, this season of life, I feel like I'm trying to abide more in Jesus, trying to abide more in that gospel stuff. Yeah. I just sat on the floor with her and talked about the consequences of sin, how I felt the consequences of sin, how sin always leads to death. It leads to death of joy and death of trust and death of relationships. And so we had a really like deep theological, soul-filled discussion last night instead of you lied to me, you're grounded. Yeah. Yeah. Right? You know what I mean? Instead of like that. And that's how God's never done that to me. Jerrad, you sinned, here's a slap on the face, you're done. You know, it's like, no, it's like, he's so patient. Right. And then you reflect on that and it allows me to be more patient with my kids. Yeah. I was listening to something yesterday and they said, if you want to go slow, go fast. If you want to go fast, go slow. And so like with people, if you want to be efficient, it's just not going to work. It's not going to be effective. If you're efficient, you're not effective. And so if you want to actually make a difference, you got to go slow. It's so much easier to say, don't lie. Like that's efficient. Right. But is that going to be effective? And so you have to actually go slow to make a real impact. And I love that line because with people, it just takes so much longer. And our children are people. And so no shortcuts to discipleship, man. It's slow. Yeah.
I'm wondering, because there's so many different ideas of God. Like you think about the Old Testament God, and I feel like some people parent like full Old Testament, you know, and like it's like demanding obedience, quick obedience, you know, like there's something to like training your children up and expecting them and calling them to more, right? But just without Jesus, it's hard to add any grace to that, and so. Just the idea we have of God in our head. I know a lot of people, like the DadWise community is not like strictly Christian, but a lot of the guys I have on are followers of Jesus just because that's my background and I'm comfortable with that. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. But just different ideas we have of God really change the way we view ourselves and then how we parent our children. And so I think that's an important thing to look at, even if you're not a religious person. It's like, what do you think about God as Father?
Yeah, there's. I think I'll butcher the quote. You should Google it so you can get it because it'll be much more eloquent than what I can say. But there's some quote. I think C.S. Lewis said it, but something to the effect of like what you believe about God. Essentially, it changes everything about how you be. It's the most important question. Yeah. It was one of those like C.S. Lewis or
that sounds right.
Yeah, one of those guys. But it's like there's two major questions, and there was kind of this like theological, philosophical thought. And again, I'm not smart enough to quote it perfectly, but what you believe about God changes everything. And then another guy said, what you believe God believes about you changes everything. Like those are two of the most important questions. Who do you think God is, and what do you think God thinks about you? Yeah. It will quite literally change everything. Yeah. So even if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm not really a religious person or a Christian, like, just curious, it would be curious to ask yourself that same question. Who do you think God is? And if there is a God, what do you think he thinks about you? And those questions are answered, I think, in the scriptures, but they're two of the most important questions you'll ever ask.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to shift gears just a little bit. Yeah. We're moving into, my wife is due in 2 weeks for our fourth baby, our fourth baby. And I know you have 4 kids. And so I wanted to ask you what I can expect with the transition from 3 to 4, if you can prepare me in any way for what's coming.
Dude, there's no prepping, man. It's so, I had 2 and I was like, this is hard, but I can do it. And then we had 3, and our third is like, it's a little girl. She's almost 5. She's like freakishly sweet. Like just she's like a cartoon character. So I look at her, I'm like, who are you? You're not. Yeah, this is a weird. Like she's just so. Even we have friends that are like, I know I'm supposed to love all your kids, but she's my favorite. She's just like this cartoon character. She's really so sweet. So when I had 3, I'm like, I got this, dude. This is a parenting thing. And then I had 4, bro, and I'm like, I'm going to die. I'm going to quite literally die. This is the hardest.
That's not what I wanted to hear.
Yeah. So good luck, bro. Have you heard that Jim Gaffigan joke where he talks about like people always ask me what having. He has a bunch of kids. I can't remember how many kids. He's
5 or 6.
People are always asking me what it's like to have 6 kids. And he's like, imagine you're drowning and you're just about to drown, and then somebody tosses you a baby. That is essentially what it's like. And I'm like, that's how I feel. Totally. I'm like, I thought this is hard, and now it's even harder.
Dang, I was hoping you would say adding 4 is just nothing.
No. Did you have Jeremy Pryor on your podcast?
I did, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I thought I saw that. And he talked, it might have been on your podcast actually. He was talking about like the studies behind the size of families.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was really fascinating.
I posted a little short on that.
Yeah. I think I watched that. That was really fascinating because you don't like hit that threshold of like, there's like some really cool data behind big families, but I think he said it starts at 4
or 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're almost there because I'm like, being pregnant's not good. My wife doesn't love it, but the big family. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to ask why you guys went for 4, if that was a conscious decision or if you just kept rolling.
We were done with 2, and then my buddy, I was on a trip we were on a work trip for like a week together, and it was a really weird work trip. It was back when I owned that video company. Okay. And we got hired to film for like a company retreat in the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
So it was just he and I at this all-inclusive resort working for this company, and we would like wake up and film this like 5 minutes worth of video in the morning and then have all day to just sit and do nothing. It was bizarre. The best. Yeah. It was the best, weirdest, thing I've ever been a part of. But so for a week, he's just like hounding me. He's like, dude, how are you going to quit having 2 kids? He's like, you guys are such good parents. The world needs more Lopes babies. And, he's just like hounding me for nonstop for the week. So I text Layla and I'm like, what do you think about having more kids? She's like, done, get home. And I'm like, whoa. I'm ready. I guess she had been thinking about it and I didn't know that, but she was like ready to go. So, and then we just literally for like even just to keep it, I didn't want 3. We wanted sets of 2 because there's a 5-year gap between the 2 sets. So,
okay. Yeah. Are you guys done with 4?
Yes. I can't do this any longer. I am drowning quite literally. But I would say if we would have just kept the like every 2-year cadence from when I started, I would have done 6.
Really?
I love
Okay.
big families.
Yeah.
I think big families are the healthiest kids I've ever met came from big families.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I think there's anecdotally from like what Jeremy Pryor was describing. I'm like, dude, I've seen it. I've seen these kids are like, they understand team. They understand to be selfless, to serve well. You're not the main part of the story. And our kids, I can already starting to see that in our kids. Like, your behavior affected the whole team. You know, it's not about you. It's like there's really healthy stuff that comes out of big families.
Yeah. Yeah. There's Jordan Peterson. He talked about like, I don't know what he calls it, something negligence. Like, it's like safe negligence, basically, of like where kids need to be left alone a little bit to like be bored and figure stuff out on their own. And when you have one or two kids, they're never bored. Like they're always, they always have someone's full attention. He's like, so with more kids, they kind of become a gang and just,
I love it.
Learn how to deal with each other on their own because you can't handle 4 kids. Yeah.
Totally. And it's kind of cool. You kind of look at, like, I watch them and there's just some natural stuff that happen. Like I noticed that they're naturally learning empathy and service, you know, like with just a little dash of intentionality, they start to pick, like, they serve each other. I watched my 2-year-old take care of her almost 5-year-old sister today when her 5-year-old sister was crying. And that you kind of get that like service, teamwork, empathy. So it's cool stuff. Yeah. I love it. I love having a big family.
What's your boy-girl split? You have 1 boy, 3 girls?
Yep, exactly. Boy's the oldest.
Boy's the oldest. Interesting. Yeah, our boy is the oldest. We go boy, girl, boy, boy, almost. The 4th one's a boy, too.
Dang, man.
Got a lot of male energy in the household.
I don't know what that's like. I don't know what that... Yeah. Maybe it'll be easier for you. Girls are hard. Girls are crazy.
I got the boys some boxing gloves recently, so just kind of letting them have at it. But
how old's your oldest?
He's 7, so 7, 5, 2, almost 3, and then almost coming up in a couple weeks. Yeah,
that's so fun, dude. Yeah, I have 2 sets of boxing gloves. So me and my boy, he's 12 now, and we we rip each other apart. I actually wrote a.
In the book, you talked about like getting knocked out. You're like, I'm fine. I'm not crying.
Yeah, no. He hit me hard, dude. He hit me hard, like rung my bell. And and he had no idea that I was. I'm like, all right, we're done for the day. That's good training, you know. Like we'll pick this up tomorrow. But I'm like, dude, that kid hit me hard.
gotta cover your head.
Yeah,
that's awesome. You talk also in your book, the mixtape book about marriage and maintaining a healthy relationship with your wife is one of the most important things you do as a dad. Will you talk a little bit about how you think about that and how you kind of pour into your wife and keep that relationship strong?
Yeah, I spoke at our church recently, and our kids, our older kids, were in the auditorium, the room when I was sharing. But I shared, they've heard the story before, but they heard it again like 2 weeks ago, where I was talking about that really hard season of life where I thought we were going to get divorced. Yeah. And I've always gone back for like, how much do I share that with my kids and not, you know, it's hard. It's hard for them to hear. Even we talked to them before I taught that Sunday. I've talked to them before that, talked to them afterwards, and it's still hard for them to hear. Yeah. But I've made a decision. I really want them to understand the challenges of marriage. I think they'll go into marriage with a realistic understanding of how hard marriage is, but way bigger than that. It just points to the gospel. I think God's number one tool for showing the gospel off, like what his relationship to us is like, is marriage. I think that's his number one tool. And so when they see mommy and daddy hurt each other, disagree with each other, at times argue and fight with each other, and at the same time say, I'm still in. I see all of who you are and I still love you. They're getting a real life glimpse of the gospel. There is a God who sees you in your brokenness, all of who you are, your secrets, you're fully laid out. And instead of saying, I'm out, which my wife could have done and should have done, like, you're messy, I'm out, you don't make me happy. But God doesn't do that to us. He doesn't say, you're messy, you don't make me happy, I'm leaving. He says, I see your brokenness and I'm still going to pursue you. Yeah. And so a marriage gives your kids the clearest picture of the gospel they'll potentially ever see. And so it's the most important thing from a parenting perspective. A healthy marriage is like the most important thing they'll ever see. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the rhythms and practices that you implement with your wife to to stay connected?
We have some unfair advantages, but this can be done for anybody. But like she just got a new job actually this week, so she'll work like 1 day a week as a nurse, but she hasn't been working the last year and a half.
Okay.
And I work from home, so we start our mornings together before the kids get up. We have a cup of coffee together every morning and just talk life and sometimes silly stuff. We show each other like stupid memes that we saw that really made us laugh, and other times we're crying, talking about Jesus and you know, what we're learning in the scriptures. So, but we get time together every day. There's some stuff like, this sounds really silly. I always talk about this at our conferences, but we make sure to hug each other for at least 30 seconds a day, every single day. That sounds so like everyone's like, what the heck? I had one guy ask me, he's like, do you time it? I'm like, bro, don't get weird. I'm not like setting a timer. Alexa, set a timer for 30 seconds and hug, you know. We had read this study one time where there's these chemicals that are being released in your brain when you hug somebody for a long time. So I'm like, let's do that. Let's hug each other and make sure we do it every day for at least 30 seconds. And so that's like awesome. A really silly one. Yeah. And then I was at a conference once, and Gary Chapman was there, the 5 love languages guy.
Yeah.
And so we got to have breakfast together one morning. I'm like, dude, I'm at breakfast with Gary Chapman, the 5 love languages guy. So I'm sitting next to him, and I'm like, what do you do in your marriage? You've been married a long time. Like, what did you do? And he says every day he asks his wife, what is causing you stress today that I can take off of your plate? I'm like, dude, if that's the question Gary Chapman's asking, I'm asking it too. So I just ask my wife every day. I'm like, what's on your plate today that's stressing you out that I can take? Just trying to posture a heart of service to her.
Right.
You're not here just to make me happy. I'm here to serve you in the same way, again, that Christ would serve his church. So those are a couple of things that come off the top of my head.
I love that. That's great. Cool. Do you guys do like a weekly date night, or how have you maintained?
We used to before 4 kids. Yeah, we had weekly date nights. Now it's like monthly.
Okay.
We'll try to get it. But a lot of people don't even have grandmas around, like in-laws and our grandparents to help. We're fortunate enough. We have her mom that helps a ton. But even asking her mom to watch all 4 kids once a week is like, I don't want to put her through that torture. So we used to set it at weekly, and now it's realistically like a monthly dinner. Yeah.
Okay. Did you move to family, or did she come with you when you guys?
She came with us.
There you go. Nice. That's the way to do it.
I didn't hear your podcast episode with Jeremy, but I wouldn't be surprised if he talked about that kind of stuff too. So my mother-in-law is from Iran, so she's Middle Eastern. And the Middle Eastern mindset of family is totally different than American mindset. Yeah. Of family. Like, it's just, you're so integrated. I love it. Some people are like, I don't want my in-laws that close and integrated, but I love it. Her perspective. She'll say things like, I've literally seen her. We've been out shopping or at the store or something, and she's like, I'm not going to buy this because I want to make sure there's money left for my the grandkids. I'm like, buy yourself the thing. Like, it's okay. You can buy yourself the But she's thinking of her grandkids and her great grandkids' legacy in all the forms. Like, financially set up, healthy. She does research on how to love them well as babies, and then like does it. You know, she's that kind of like legacy mindset. It's so not American, but it's like. So anyway, when she heard we're moving, she's like, I'm moving with you guys. I'm going. Yeah. She doesn't live with us. She lives 8 minutes away, but she came. Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, I read a study that was like, it's good for, like, grandparents live longer when they're around their grandchildren. Wow. And grandchildren also, like, grow up to be whatever, smarter, faster, better in every way.
They can run faster.
They're stronger. When they're around their grandma. Yeah. I love that. Wow. What kind of rhythms do you build into your family culture to help kind of shape values? And because I know there's different, like, there's always times for teaching and stuff, but do you have like set rhythms throughout the week that you do for your family?
Yeah, well, I learn a lot of stuff. My buddy Jeff Bethke, I don't know if you've had him on. He's with Jeremy Pryor. They do a lot of stuff together, but he's a friend of mine, and I learn a lot from him. He's really good at rhythms and thinking through family through the context of rhythms. I've learned a lot from him. He's written. He's got a ministry called Family Teams. Yeah. And I think he might have a book called the same, or Taking Your Family Back is the name of his book. But he talks a lot about rhythm. So we implement a weekly Sabbath. Cool. John Mark Homer, who's in the Pacific Northwest. He was in Portland where we were. Learned a lot from him on Sabbath. He's been on our podcast.
Cool.
A guy named AJ Swoboda is from the Pacific Northwest. He's talked a lot about Sabbath as well.
Yeah.
So we have a weekly Sabbath, which
cool.
I learned from those guys, but it's hard. It's so hard. Most people give up because it's so awkward. And we're not used to having a whole day to rest.
Yeah.
And I'm I like to get things done. So purposely not getting anything done for a day is really, really hard for me.
Yeah.
But those guys, I would say, like, look up all those guys I mentioned. Jeff Bethke.
Yeah. I think Bethke did a new book, right? The, like, To Hell with the Hurry. Isn't that kind of Sabbathy? Or was that a while ago? I don't know if that's new.
Yeah, it's like the hustle and heart or something. Yeah, I don't remember.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, we're somewhere around there. We're getting close. Yeah, but he and John Mark did a podcast, like a short podcast series on that. It was really good, just on Sabbathing and how to Sabbath and rest as a family.
To hell with the hustle.
To hell with the hustle. Yeah, we both had part of it. Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah, so the weekly Sabbath, we have things like we really tried to make the table sacred. So trying to do things where when we're eating meals together, it's really sacred. Again, I learned a lot of this stuff from those guys, but like obviously no technology at the phone. Like that's an easy one. I got this. I have this fire pit, like tabletop fire pit that I bought on Amazon. You just fill it with alcohol and then light it, and it's like a fire in the middle of it. It's incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't remember how much it is. It's not a ton, but it's really worth the investment because it feels different every time you're eating together. And we'll do we'll turn off the lights. We used to do candlelit dinners. I learned that from Andy Crouch.
Yeah.
But we used to do candlelit dinners, but instead I'd use this fire pit now. And we'll just turn off the lights at dinner and have this little fire pit, or turn the lights really, really low. I put it on a dimmer, and it just kind of focuses the whole attention of the family together around the table. And it doesn't matter, like we could be eating mac and cheese and having like a candlelit dinner. You know, it doesn't matter what the meal is. And we tell stories, and we try to engage the kids' hearts. And the best, I think some of, if not the best discipleship I've seen in my kids is around a dinner table.
Yeah. Is that every night you light the candle, or is that a Sabbath special?
So it used to be Sabbath. Now our kids just love it. So we do it most nights. They're like, nice. I should have saved it, you know, because you are supposed to like make something different, you know.
Sure.
Like Jeremy, I think Jeremy, they do different. They have Sabbath plates, so different type of plates every Sabbath.
The fine china.
Yeah. So it just feels different for the kids, but we use that thing all the time.
Yeah.
And our guests love it. It's a hit, you know, when we come, lower the lights, to put that little fire pit going in the middle of the table.
Grab one of those.
Yeah, it's cool.
There's a bunch on Amazon, $30 if you want to get one.
Yeah.
Or $70 if you want to go big. But
dang.
What are some of your favorite questions to ask your kids at the table that get conversation going?
That's good, dude. So this is a weird plug. I'm plugging something that I haven't actually put out there yet, but I'm about to release dinner time devotional cards.
Oh, cool.
With like almost 200 intentional questions.
Nice. Cool.
Because it's hard to think of like an intentional question, you know, like, but like some of them would be things like, you know, what do you know what the word content means? What do you think it means to be content?
Yeah.
How would you define successful? And so I'll let them talk about that. And like, what do you think in God's kingdom successful looks like?
Yeah.
You know, things like that. If God, we talk about the rich young ruler, God told him to sell everything to come follow him. What do you think would be hard for you to give up in order to follow? If Jesus were sitting at this table and he said, Elijah, Eden, you know, my kids' names. If he said, I want you to give up this, what would this be that would be really hard for you to give up? So questions like that, those are all on the cards, but questions like that to get to the heart.
Yeah. I have just been doing like highs and lows from the day, but those get after it. That's great.
That's an easy one and a cool rhythm. The kids will learn the rhythm of that, and they'll be able to share. But yeah.
Cool. I love that. When are those coming out? I'll have to plug them once you release
that. I don't know. So we're just finishing up the. For every question, there'll be scripture tied to it.
Cool.
And then we're finishing those up, and then I don't know how long it takes to get printed in China and shipped back over here. But probably within the next couple months. Yeah.
Cool. I love that. Do you lead like a formal like family devotion with your kids?
No. Let me show you. Hold on. I'm going to grab this thing real quick. I'll show you. Is this on YouTube or you just do a...
I'll record. I'll edit. Yeah, so you're good.
So Layla and I do a devotional every morning. I'm actually doing a video today on our favorite daily devotionals, but those are more for her and I.
Yeah.
And then I'll go through with my older kids. I'll sit down and actually read the Bible with them. So my kids, we went through the book of Mark recently. We just sat down and read one chapter of Mark a day. But I just found this book. It's by Reformation Books. Called Family Worship Bible Guide.
Okay.
It's really cool because it has I don't know if it's it's not necessarily devotional. It's kind of like context or good thoughts around every single chapter of the Bible.
Wow.
Literally every single chapter in the Bible.
That's
so
solid.
you can read through any Bible or any book with your kids, any Bible book with your kids, and then and it's meant for family. So it's written in language that makes sense for your family. And they'll just literally give you a short context, things to think about for that.
Cool.
It's really, really good. I got a couple copies of these. They're great.
Yeah, I've tried a bunch of different things, but during Advent, we have the big tree that opens up and it's Ann Voss Camp, and we try to do that every night and light a candle, and that's always really good, and we nail it for 25 days, and then I try to keep it rolling all year long, and it's hard in the summer in the Northwest because we're just we got to get outside while the sun's out. And, but I'll try to read a little proverb in the morning sometimes, or just while they're eating breakfast to get some stuff, to get some words out. But I
think what I've learned is for the real young ones, I'll use the Jesus Storybook Bible for the young ones, just to start getting them introduced to the story of God, the stories in Scripture. The Good Book Company puts out really good books for just helping the little ones learn the stories of God in gospel context. And then when they get older, I'd say 9, 10 years old and beyond, I think reading the actual scriptures with them is great.
Yeah.
Just pick a chapter a day. If you don't have to prepare any study, you don't have to know the answers, you don't have to know context stuff, just literally read it. And little books like this are helpful for that, but just read it. Trust that the Spirit of God is working, and he'll change hearts as he always does.
Yeah, that was my favorite thing about what I learned about leading small groups is just say I don't know if you don't know, and then come back with an answer later. Don't fake it. Just do your best and say I don't know when you don't know.
Yep, which I say often to my kids.
Yeah,
my daughter, my 9-year-old. Oh, she just turned 10. She asks me questions literally daily. I'm like, I have no clue. That's such a good question. I have no clue.
I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah,
that's awesome. You've talked to a lot of different people on your podcast, and I'm wondering, what have you noticed any themes of older men saying what they wish they would have done different as they were raising their families, or their advice they would give to younger men?
I just had another guy this week that I talked to that I asked him that question. Some things that have stuck out to me from the guys who have adult kids are, one, a lot of them say they would have been slower to let technology in the home, which always sticks out to me. One of my good friends who's a mentor, and I really look up to him and the way he's raised his kids, that was his first answer. And it surprised me because I thought it was going to be way deeper than that. But he's like, I truly would have just not let my kids have devices or social media for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. We all kind of know that, but that was a big thing for him. I've heard a lot of people talk about that. Andy Crouch, again, for reference, he does a lot of good thinking through tech with the family.
Yeah.
A lot of good books and resources on that. And then a lot of guys I've talked to, I've noticed they just had a little bit of intentionality. It's it's more than 99% of dads do.
Yeah.
But the outcome is significantly bigger. So one guy I just talked to, he had a couple buddies who had kids the same age, and every month they would just get together with their kids. So it'd be the dads and the kids together once a month, and they would just try to talk about one quality together, that this is what they did it for their boys. So this is one quality that we see in godly men. And then once a year they would do a big camping trip or something together as a whole group. And he said like the fruit of that once a month thing was like a life changer for the boys. So again, it doesn't take a ton of effort, although even that feels like a lot of effort in our busy lives. But like you do that one thing and it has exponential fruit coming from it.
I love that. Yeah, because it feels like there's a lot to tackle as a dad. Like if you start listing out all the responsibilities and what you should be doing and read all the parenting books, it can be overwhelming. But like baby steps of intentionality.
I think just a little bit of intentionality goes a long way.
I love that. What do you think every dad should be doing if they're not doing already? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah. So I know you've probably got listeners all over the spectrum. So I'll just give my perspective. I'm sure a bunch of guys will answer this differently, but for me, truly, when I'm closest to Jesus, I'm just a better man. Like I'm a way better dad. I'm a way better husband, and I'm actually, I feel like a gift to the people around me, and not like a burden to them, or like my goal is, and I had a close friend just tell me this the other day, but we were talking on the phone. He's like, dude, every time I'm done hanging out with you, I feel like I'm a better man. And I'm like, that literally is the greatest, like what greater compliment could you have given me? I don't feel that as a man. I don't feel, but all that is I think he senses the Spirit of God in me. Yeah. And I can only do that. There's been many, many seasons in my life where that would not be true. You know, you spend time with me and you hear things like, dude, that guy's cynical. That guy's a downer. That guy's negative, that guy doesn't have any joy. But the closer I am with Jesus, just the better man I am. And so if you're not, you can like try to have all the qualities of Jesus while not being around him. You know what I mean? Like you try to be a joyful guy, a nice guy, a funny guy, all these things. But you don't really have, I mean, I keep saying this in our conversation, but Jesus said, I am the vine, you are the branches. Outside of me, you can accomplish nothing. So if you think that you can be a good dad, a good husband, a good man outside of Jesus, it's going to be really, really, really hard. Jesus says it's impossible. So I know that's like a really churchy answer, but
no, I love it.
It's been true in my life.
What's something you do to stay abiding, to stay close?
I know I hate like
spiritual
churchy
disciplines.
answers. Yeah, I know I hate churchy like answers, bro. But it's just the reason they're like cliches because they've been working for hundreds and thousands of years. It's spending intentional time in prayer and intentional time in God's Word. Like
there you go. It's not rocket science.
No, pray and read your Bible, dude. And the other big thing is surround yourself with other people who love Jesus. Yeah. When we get isolated as men, our brain go to weird places, and I've been there, and dark places. It led me to the point where it almost my marriage was going to fail. I was going to bail on my kids. Yeah. It's hard to do that when you're surrounded by a bunch of dudes who are solid dudes.
Yeah. I just spoke with Justin Early, and his book is about friendship.
Oh,
and so, the Made for People. So if anyone's looking for something on friendship, that's a good resource.
It's so good. And I'm sure that conversation was incredible. Yeah. He has really good thoughts on friendship.
Yeah. What are you reading right now? What's on your nightstand?
I don't read a lot, to be totally honest with you. So when people ask me that question, usually it's nothing.
What are you listening to?
Yeah. But I do have this. I just got this devotional because I had this guy on the podcast. It's called When Faith is Forbidden. And it's a guy from Voice of the Martyrs. And he wrote 40 devotionals on believers around the world who are being persecuted or who have lost their life for the sake of the faith. And again, real hard to like complain about silly stuff.
Yeah.
When you've got that perspective. So I've actually been really enjoying that. I've been reading some of those with the kids too.
Yeah. Love that. Cool. Have you noticed, this is off topic a little bit, but have you noticed a change so you moved from West Coast to East Coast? Have you noticed a change in yourself and your, like, just the water you're swimming in? How has that changed your family life and your mental life? And because I know the Northwest has a special vibe.
Special's a great word for it. Yeah. What's funny is there's quite literal waters I'm swimming in now that I wasn't. Like I'm in pools or oceans or rivers now all the time swimming. Yeah. Because it's warm here and it's not always like cold and dreary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how much of it's spiritual, dude, but I'm sure there's a major spiritual component to it. But just going from the Northwest to where we are now, where it's like sunny majority of the year and people are outside, people are genuinely just like happier here, like they're out on walks, they're smiling, they're waving to each other, and it does do something to your mental health. Like Layla said, for years, she's born and raised in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. And she's like, no, I'm fine, I'm good. And then we moved here our first year, and the sky's like always blue, and she's like, I feel like it legit has like an effect on you, like an impact. Yeah. You wake up and you see a blue sky, and you're like, I want to go do stuff. I want to accomplish. Let's work out or like get outside and stuff. I'm like, that I don't know what the spiritual components of that are, but it's like just from a practical standpoint, it's real.
I wanted to ask Justin about it when I had him on, but I forgot. But like talking about friendship in the Pacific Northwest, it feels like a whole different vibe. Like the way we're up near Seattle, like how we think about friendship, and it's different than like the Midwest or the South or East Coast. And I would love to hear his thoughts on that.
Dude, I do think there is like an actual spiritual component of what's happening in the Pacific Northwest. On the West Coast, but specifically the Pacific Northwest has I travel the country. There's some seasons of life I'm like, I'm in a new city or state every week. Yeah. There's something really dark and different about the Pacific. Not to like, you're like, thanks, bro.
Right on, my friend.
Yeah, seriously. But there is something different. Not to say like everyone needs to bail from there for sure. We need people to stay. But I'm glad I didn't.
Nice. I love it. I think we're coming up on our hour. That's a great place to stop. Do you have any parting words or thoughts for dads? How can we connect with what you're doing?
Parting words would be, I had a mentor tell me this, like, you're going to have a bunch of job titles before you die. None of them really matter. The titles that matter most, so if you're a believer in Jesus, you're a follower of Jesus, it would be husband, father, disciple. Yeah. If you're not a follower of Jesus, you would consider yourself religious, then it would just, if you're a dad, it would be father. If you're a husband, it'd be husband. You're going to die a husband. You're going to die a dad. Your job, so many of us as dudes, we think about work so much, and we're going to be on our deathbed soon, real soon, like freakishly soon. Best case scenario for most of us, it's like 30, 40 years. How crazy is that? Think about how fast a year goes by. You got like 30, 40, best case scenario. It's going to be so soon. And dude, you're just not going to be thinking about work. You're not going to be thinking about all the dumb stuff that you're chasing after today. You're going to be thinking about your kids, your wife, your friendships, the things that mattered most. And so stop chasing dumb stuff, chase eternal stuff, the stuff that matters, stuff that will actually have an impact for generations after you. That's the stuff that matters. Yeah. And then, ways to connect. Just anywhere DadTired. You can just click that anywhere on the internet and it'll pop up. And would love to have guys connect with us.
Yeah. Where are you most active? Instagram or?
Instagram for sure. Daily? We have our own online community. It's kind of off social media because a lot of guys get distracted on social media for various reasons. So we got our own little platform where guys can join. And then I'm trying to get more plugged in on YouTube too.
Yeah. YouTube's a whole nother beast.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for hopping on. Love for it if the guys who listen to this jump on and follow your stuff. It's all great content. So, appreciate your time, and your ministry has been helpful for me, and your books have all been helpful for me also. So, thank you for all the effort and time you put into that.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. It's good talking to you.